This is the morning of the 30th of July, 2024. I think you'll find this clip to be most interesting. Title, quote, "We just tell the truth," end of quote. VP Harris, longtime mentor, repeatedly defended controversial Obama pastor. Reverend Amos Brown invited Jeremiah Wright at least 3 times to his church in the years following the viral Goddamn America sermon by Cameron Cawthorn, Andrew Mark Miller of Fox News. Let's listen to this clip. Harris attempts to distance herself over lead role in stopping illegal immigration at the southern border. Plays for 5 minutes and 54 seconds. Stupid ad popped up. There wasn't an ad there a moment ago. I'll get rid of it.
Vice President, how did you decide that right now was the right time to make your first trip to the border?
Well, it's not my first trip. I've
As
been to the
Vice
border many
President,
times.
as the person in charge of the response.
So, the important aspect of this visit is leading this visit after the work that we did in Guatemala and Mexico. Because as I've long said, I said back in March I was going to come to the border, so this is not a new plan.
And that, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris speaking with White House senior correspondent Peter Doocy during the one and only trip. She went to the southern border as VP back in 2021, not disputing that she's the person in charge to stem the tide of illegal immigration. But the media is getting in line with the new Democrat talking points, trying to rewrite history. Here's Axios this week. Reporter Steph Knight says the Trump campaign and Republicans are tagging Harris with the title of border czar, which Knight claims Harris never actually had. But go back to 2021, their own reporter at Axios, Shauna Chen, wrote Biden appointed Kamala Harris as border czar. Axios is now walking back that report, saying, oh, they incorrectly labeled Harris the border czar in the first place. Joining me now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. AG, thanks very much for being here this morning, even though you are in France with the Eiffel Tower behind you. Thank you for being here. I want to get your take on your experience with Kamala Harris. You've been on the front lines of the border crisis. She says she was never in charge of overseeing the border. Your reaction?
Look, she's going to run from every policy of the Biden administration she can because they're all failed. They purposely set this up so that illegals could come. They announced the first day of his administration that they were not going to deport people, and they just let the cartels bring as many people here. They helped them. They did the logistics for them. They moved them around the country, and their purpose was getting as many illegals in this country, and they were successful. So for her to say that she didn't have any responsibility, whatever her title was, she is the vice president of the United States. We know that. And she supported every single one of these policies, including every policy of eliminating American law that was supposed to stop this. She was behind that with President Joe Biden.
So what do you make of all of this money moving into Kamala's campaign? The Wall Street Journal writes Harris has erased Trump's lead, according to a Wall Street Journal poll. What do you think is going on? Are people falling for the rewrite of history?
Look, I think it's easy to do, but the truth is she still has to defend the policies of the Biden administration that created the problem for Joe Biden, which is he had low poll numbers because none of what he did actually helped the American people. And so they're trying to distance her from that. But the reality is Donald Trump, the Republicans are going to tie her to what she was actually responsible for, which was the failed policies, the economic policies, the failed international policies, and the failed policies on the border. Nothing was done well for the American people, and she's responsible for that.
Well, she said that she wants health care for illegal migrants as well. She's Medicare for all people. What kind of a cost does that look like to you? Tell us about the cost of, in fact, having health care for all people, even if it's illegal in the country.
This is another way to increase inflation. They've spent trillions of dollars during the Biden administration driving up the cost for Americans in all kinds of different issues, whether it's housing, whether it's gas, whether it's food. We're paying more because the government spent too much money. This idea that we're going to spend money on people that are not even citizens that are coming here, we have an open border so that it's unlimited what we're going to be spending. That only hurts American people because that means we're all going to be paying more, and there's also going to be competition for jobs with Americans.
Now, you have said in the past that you believe that illegals are getting driver's licenses, and the whole plan here is for the Democrats to get some illegals to vote in our upcoming election. Do you still see evidence of that? Tell us your thoughts on the potential of illegals in America, now 10 million on Joe Biden's watch, trying to vote in America's election in November.
Look, I have no doubt. I watched what they did in the last election with mail-in ballots. I stopped it in my state. I'm so glad that Florida has their act together, but very few states are prepared for this because only 3 states have laws that require proof of citizenship. So all the federal government has to do, look, they've gotten them here. They know where these people are. They've given them phones. They've moved them around to the states they want them in. All they have to do is give them Social Security numbers. With the Social Security number, they can get a driver's license in most states, maybe all states. And guess what? Then they can register to vote, and they don't have to prove citizenship. And so we may never know if this is an effort. We may never know the extent of it, but I have no doubt there is a reason that these people were brought here, and I believe it was voting. What other reason did they have to start on day one? They didn't wait for a week. They didn't wait for a month. They started day one importing people and telling the cartels, get them here, and we want these people here as fast as possible, and we want as many as possible.
So what do you recommend the RNC do to ensure that doesn't happen then in the next 100 days?
Look, we're looking into ways to deal with it. It's difficult because we're running out of time, but I think there is a way to actually ask for information related to the voter rolls that the federal government has as to who's a citizen and who's not. Okay. We need that information so that we can compare our voter rolls because we don't know. That's our only way of knowing is if the federal government will cooperate and give us that information.
All right, AG, thanks very much for joining us today. We so appreciate it. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Thank you, sir.
You know, I posted all kinds of videos about Obama and Reverend Wright. Reverend Wright ran a church full of homosexuals. And let's not forget the band leader that was found murdered. Reportedly, he was also screwing Obama, or Obama was screwing him. And then there's Larry Sinclair. If you're not familiar with Larry Sinclair, you want to take a look at him and what he did and what Obama did with Larry Sinclair. The whole thing is sickening. Absolutely sickening. And camel face on her knees, Kamala Harris, absolute garbage. So what's written? Vice President Kamala Harris, pastor and longtime mentor, repeatedly defended former President Obama's controversial pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Remember when he said, "God damn America"? When his past sermon sparked a firestorm of controversy during the 2008 presidential campaign, a Fox News Digital Review found. Reverend Amos Brown, the longtime minister of San Francisco's Third Baptist Church, and Wright were reportedly friends and attended the same graduate ministry school together in Dayton, Ohio, according to a March 2008 San Francisco Chronicle article profiling Brown's sermon. The article went on to say Brown even has a photo of Wright in his church office. On Sunday, he told the packed church that the criticism being hurled at Obama for his close ties to Wright are part of a conspiracy aimed at damaging the candidate on the issue of religion, because there's no other negative issue out there that has tarnished his reputation, the article said. You're kidding, right? There's no other issue out there that has tarnished his reputation? How about taking 2 kids that don't belong to him and pretending that they belong to him, like Malia and Sasha? Dr. Nita Blanchard and Marty Nesbitt are their parents. How about emptying Guantanamo? How about sending $1.5 billion in cash to Iran? There's no other issues that have tarnished his reputation? What you are seeing happening in Barack Obama was hatched, crafted, and developed a year ago when you were sleeping, Brown reportedly said during the sermon. This kind of nonsense does not just happen. Brown's a complete jackass. Look at this guy. He looks like he's out of his fucking mind. Brown, who said he has known Harris and her family for more than 2 decades and was one of Harris's guests to attend her inauguration in 2021, could be a major liability for a campaign as his past sermons and ties to right start to surface. Harris previously praised Brown for being on the journey with me every step of the way. In an April 2008 op-ed for SafeGate, Brown defended Wright and claimed that the sound bites from Wright's previous sermons were being mischaracterized by the media. When he says, "God damn America," that's being mischaracterized by the media? He responded to the San Francisco Chronicle piece by saying the reporter characterized his and Wright's style of preaching as similar, but Brown rejected the description of their tone as fiery. Wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of connections between this pastor and Reverend Wright running homosexual organizations. If white preachers Billy Graham, Pat Robertson, Jerry Farrell, and others can exercise their freedoms and sometimes say the wrong thing, as the facts document, we should be able to say the right things on behalf of social justice and peace, and not be demonized by detractors, he added. So saying, "God damn America," that's okay for social justice and peace, right? Wright previously blamed Jews in a 2009 for keeping him from talking with Obama after he won the White House. He has also made a number of other inflammatory remarks, including when he said after 9/11 that Americans' chickens are coming home to roost. Guy's completely nuts. Obama would go on to distance himself from Wright during the 2008 campaign, saying he was outraged and saddened by Wright's words and resigned his membership at the church in May of 2008. Why don't you talk about the band leader you were screwing, Barack? You know, the guy that was found shot to death in his apartment when he decided to run for the Oval Office? The following year, months after Obama was sworn in as president, Wright was invited by Brown to speak at the church, where Brown had been the pastor since 1976. You know, I actually recall making a video where Larry Sinclair received a call from the pastor's band leader. And the reason he received the call was the band leader was curious to know if Obama cheated on him with Larry Sinclair. These people are all insane. Brown, who previously broadcast an entire Wright sermon before his congregation during the presidential campaign in an attempt to prove Wright was being taken out of context, defended Wright's participation in his church's anniversary event, honoring him, saying that is part of the spiritual DNA of this church to lend clarity and context to important public policy issues. In addition to the 2009 visit, Wright visited Brown's church at least 2 other times in 2010 and 2012. In September 2010, Wright visited multiple churches between Oakland and San Francisco, including Brown's Third Baptist Church. In December 2012, Brown posted on his Facebook that in the wake of last week's audacious tragedy in Newton, Connecticut, his church will be doing a service focused on peace and ending violence in America. The entire Bay Area community is invited to join the worship experience, which will feature President Obama's former pastor, Dr. Jeremiah Wright, Democrat, Minnesota, pastor emeritus of Trinity United Methodist Church, Chicago, Illinois, as the guest preacher, the Facebook post read. Other special guests include legendary actor and activist Danny Glover. Harris has repeatedly praised Brown, who previously sparked his own controversy by blaming America for 9/11 days after the terrorist attack during a memorial service, and has given him multiple shout-outs during speeches as vice president. What they're doing is they're setting the stage, they're putting grease under Harris's wheels. So when they blow her out at the convention, you'll know why. I just want to, if you don't mind for a moment, take a moment of personal privilege to talk about Dr. Brown. He has been on his journey with me every step of the way, from when I first thought about running for public office almost 2 decades ago, Harris said in 2020, during the NAACP National Convention. And he's been such a voice of leadership, more leadership and leadership in our nation. And so I want to thank you, Dr. Brown, for all that you are all that you are. During the annual session of the National Baptist Convention, USA in 2022, Harris reflected on her longtime friendship with Brown. Quote, "For 2 decades now at least, I have turned to you," Harris said. "I have turned to him, and I will say that your wisdom has really guided me and grounded me during some of the most difficult times. And you have a source of inspiration to me always. So thank you, Reverend Brown, for being all that you are." Yeah, a nut job. "It is always an honor to spend time with my pastor, Dr. Reverend Amos Brown, on the Third Baptist Church of San Francisco," Harris said in a 2023 Instagram photo caption of her Brown embracing. "He remains a source of inspiration to me always. I want to shout out to my pastor, Amos Brown, for joining us. And with that, let's begin our conversation," Harris said in 2021 during a virtual roundtable session with faith healers. Like I said, they're slapping grease under her feet, so when they blow her out, you'll know why. And this Reverend Brown, complete nut job. That's just sort of what I think. I'll attach the link. Look at it. Let me know what you think. Pass it along, and thanks for listening.